Hello, what's up? Today I'm going to be telling you about how to use and set up the Jeet Sniper Telegram bot settings. So if you go on settings here, you've got three main settings. You've got the buy settings, the sell settings, and the main settings. These are going to kind of be what's used every time you buy and sell something. You've also got presets that I'll explain a little later. So jumping into the buy settings, slippage. You should really know what slippage is already, but if you don't, slippage is the amount you're going to allow something to move when you're buying it. So you send a transaction off for a coin that costs $1. When you get to buying, like when the transaction actually gets to buying the token, say the token's worth like $1.50, you choose the limit on how much you're going to allow that asset to change price when your transaction's going through, so you don't accidentally buy something for way too much money, etc. Amount is the amount you're going to be buying in Solana. So every time you buy a coin, it's just how much it's going to be given into the coin to get tokens back. Priority fee and the compute limit. So these are tied. Programs on the blockchain, they use compute units to run. Um, so here you set how much you would like your transactions to use. Blocks have a height, and this height is determined by the amount of compute units they have in them. So when you send a transaction, sometimes you might get a block height exceeded kind of thing. That means you've missed the block. There's only so many compute units inside of each block, so the height of a block is determined off of how many compute units are inside of it. So this is why you can set it, because obviously to interact with the things on the blockchain that you need to for your transaction to go through, they all use these things called compute units, and if you set too little, then your transaction will be going through and it'll be trying to interact with stuff, liquidity pools, etc., etc. And if it runs out, then the transaction will just fail. If you've got too many, then you lessen your chances of being included inside of the block. So it's not too drastic with tiny transactions like this. I've added it just so you have like full control, so you can choose your speed. But yeah, that's computer unit. Jito. If you don't know what Jito is like an alternative way to send transactions on the blockchain. Jito has its own Jito validator, which it uses to validate transactions. Um, it's pretty cool what they've done with Jito. You know, it's sometimes more efficient and it's sometimes quicker as well. But it depends on how many people are using Jito at that time and stuff like that. I remember I made a tweet on how to see the Jito tip. I might also some that I will code in the future is an automatic Jito tip, and instead of choosing how much you want to tip, you choose how likely you want to be included in the next block in Jito, which I'll explain how that'll work. And then a automatic compute unit limit, so you don't need to set it at all. It'll just the code will determine how much compute units the transaction is looking like it's going to use, and it'll set the minimum but safest amount. So you're small and you can fit in blocks easy, but at the same time you're not going to run out of compute units. Um, if you do not, if this is off, use Jito, then it won't use Jito. It will just send transaction through normally, just to an RPC node, which I'll get to that again in a second. If you use Jito, obviously it sends it differently. Skip pre-flight. Pre-flight is whether you want your transaction to be simulated before send. So if you have pre-flight on, um, by the way, when this is green, it means on, right? I mean, it changes here, so it's pretty self-explanatory. But when you've got pre-flight on, it'll simulate the transaction before it goes through. So if you're messing around with the settings and like the compute unit limit, for example, it'll it'll tell you that your transaction will fail before it fails, so you don't lose money. If you're running on not a lot of Solana to trade with, and you're scared that your transaction might not go through because I don't know you're messing with settings and stuff like that, then yeah, skip pre-flight's definitely recommended. If you, it probably adds a tiny little millisecond difference onto the speed of a transaction. So If you're very confident and you're working with a lot of Solana, you can just keep that off. You've literally got no chance of your transactions failing unless you're messing stuff with the compute limit. But yeah, that's what skip preflight does. Max retries is how many times you want to send your transaction. So if you send your transaction and nothing happens, it's rejected from the block, everything ignores it, then it'll try and send it again. Obviously, the trade-off here is the higher your max retries, the longer it may take for a transaction to go through, which means that the price may have changed a lot more. So if you've got a max retries of like say fucking 15, then if it fails once, it'll go through until it's tried 15 times. And if you're really unlucky and it's that 15th time that works, then a lot of time has changed. So you might get kind of a bad price or something like that. So there's just three's enough. All these default settings are enough. CU limit of 200,000 is perfectly fine. Max retries 3 is also perfectly fine. Mev protection, this is to do with Jito. So if you're using Jito and you're using Mev protection, then it'll send your transaction to a slightly different location than it would if you were just using Jito. And this one is Mev protection. It's the same Mev protection that everybody else like Bullex provides. It's the same way that they do it. They just I don't know. Sometimes they name it differently, but Mev protection, obviously, a Mevbot is something that looks at unconfirmed transactions on the blockchain and then makes money off of it. So it might see a transaction coming on the blockchain and then it might jump in front of it. So it buys before you and then sells right after you. Therefore, front running bots. There's arbitrage back running bots. There's a bunch of little Mev things that you can do, and it sometimes loses you money. So if you do want Mev protection, you can turn that on. But at the same time, I think it slows down the transaction by a little bit as well. So yeah. And degen mode is literally on the bot, which I won't be making any trades today. Today's just showing the settings and how to set it up. Degen mode, if you turn that on, as soon as you place a coin address, it'll ask you for a coin address. As soon as you paste the coin address, it'll instantly send the trade. Otherwise, it'll show you all your settings, show you what you were about to do, and then you press accept. So it just takes a step out of the way you trade with the bot. Sell settings, so these are pretty much all the same. I don't really need to explain any of these. It's just different because people might want different settings for buying and selling. Like, I don't know, you want to buy quicker than you sell, or probably the other way around. You want to buy slower and sell quicker if you're tight on funds. So you get to choose how much. You've not got to sell them out here because the way you sell is going to ask how much you want to sell before you sell. So you click 100%, 50%, or choose a custom anything. So these are all really the same as the buy settings. Now main settings. So when you're interacting with the blockchain, the RPC nodes are like the gateway for people to interact with the blockchain. When you send a transaction, you're going to send a transaction through an RPC node. The RPC node is going to push that transaction, give it to a validator. There's a bunch of other stuff that goes on, but all you really need to know is that. The validator is then going to process your transaction, put it inside of a block. But RPC nodes are where speed truly comes from. If you want speed, you want an RPC node. So I'll put some links in the description of RPC nodes. This is the default RPC node. This is the RPC node that Solana itself gives developers and people that want to interact with the blockchain to use. A bunch of your stuff will use this RPC node. You can literally see it ends with Solana.com. You know it from Solana. And that's going to be the default for when you start setting up the bot. That's going to be the default link there. However, if you want speed, there is a bunch of different RPC nodes you can use. So, for example, I might make another video on how to get RPC nodes, but you can either pay a lot of money for an RPC node, or you can get RPC nodes for free on stuff like QuickNode, Alchemy, Infura. These are all websites that have got RPC nodes that you can use. So all other trading kind of platforms like Bullex, Photon, all of these, they all have their own RPC node which all their users use. However, again, the idea with this bot is to allow users to choose how fast their transactions want to go through. If you've got money to spend on stuff like an RPC node, you should be able to use it. You can't with them, you can with this. So there we go. RPC nodes can range from like really cheap to really, really expensive. Obviously, the more expensive you go, the faster your transactions are going to go through, etc., etc. So you've noticed we have two primary RPC node and secondary RPC node. So with things like Quick Node, you can get a really fast RPC node for free, but you can only use it so many times. So on Quick Node, you've got 10 million credits that they give you, and each time you interact with it, it'll use 10 of these credits or 50. I can't remember the number, but for if someone wants to save these things, then you have a primary, a secondary, and the save mode. What the save mode will do is when you make a transaction, you do a load of other things other than just send the transaction. Like you need to quit, like so you're selling, you need to query the amount of tokens that you have in your wallet. So to doing that, we'll query the blockchain through one of these RPC nodes, and that might use tokens. Well, that will use tokens from your quick node. So what the secondary RPC does is it allows you to save the amount of times that your primary RPC link is being queried. So if the, as I mean, it says here, when enabled, the primary RPC will be used for sending transactions only. Um, it won't be queried for balances. When you go on the home page, it won't be queried to show your balance of the wallet that you've got in. Um, Here, it won't be used to show you this balance or anything like this. Um, just to save your tokens, pretty much. So, so yeah, that's a little feature that we've got in there as well. So you can save and choose. So finally, we have presets. So presets, you can make any preset you want. Say if I just wanted to make a preset called main, you've made a preset called main, and you can see all of your settings here. You can see the RPC nodes that you're using, the buy settings you're using, the sell settings you're using, load them, all of this. So if you want to save a preset, you just press save preset, enter a name, and then if you want to load a preset, you can also just click this, and then it'll ask you to load, or you can click the bin icon, and it'll just ask you if you want to bin, and then it deletes it. So it's all pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, that's basically everything for the RPC nodes. Let me see if I'll make another YouTube video on explaining how to um, get RPC nodes set up and running, and how you can buy your own in the different websites that you can do it at. But other than that, that's about it. So thank you for watching, guys. Uh, Sign up, join the Discord if you want. That'll be in the description below. This bot isn't out yet. I just need to finish a few more things, and then it'll be out, and then you'll be able to do all of this. So yeah, enjoy.